Welcome to Teach Smart Level 1, the Groundbreaker, an empowering journey designed to help first year teachers from uncertainty to confidence. At Edu Nexa International, we believe that a lesson plan is not a formality, it is a teacher's intellectual blueprint that transforms curriculum goals into living classroom experiences. Through this episode, educators will explore a simplified four-part framework that helps them begin effectively, teach clearly, engage meaningfully, and close reflectively. Welcome to lesson 3 of Teach Smart the Groundbreaker Level 1, where we are going to explore the basics of lesson planning, an easy format for beginners. This lesson is designed to help new educators move beyond the idea of lesson planning as a routine task and begin to see it as a creative, intellectual, and emotional process that gives rhythm and soul to teaching. A good plan is not about rushing through the syllabus, it's about pacing the learning so that every student feels seen, engaged, and capable. Think of your lesson plan as a compass that keeps you oriented towards meaningful learning even when the classroom feels unpredictable. Through this session, you will learn how to break down complex content into teachable moments, align your objectives with outcomes, and create smooth transitions that sustain attention and curiosity. Remember, effective lesson planning doesn't limit spontaneity, it empowers it. Because when you plan well, you don't just manage a class, you lead a learning journey that touches both the mind and heart. Objectives and learning outcomes. By the end of the session, you will master four-part natural lesson arc, that is begin, teach, practice and end. Learn how to pace the emotional and cognitive rhythm of a lesson. Also, you will be able to identify and correct lesson plan overload and content cramming. Also, you will be guided to avoid planning traps that compromise student engagement. By applying these insights, you will be able to design lessons that prevent attention dips, integrate strategic moments of pause, and create strong closure mechanisms that help learning stick. The ultimate goal is not to complete a plan, but to create reflective, energy sensitive planning habits that sustain engagement. Because powerful teaching doesn't happen by chance, it happens by design, and that design begins with a well paced, well thought out lesson plan. The roadmap. Throughout this journey, how we will be going through is that why lesson plan is emotional before it is instructional. Four-part lesson structure we will be going through, then brain science behind attention flow, emotional transitions and time leaks we will be managing, three mistakes that we are supposed to avoid that kill great lesson plans, real classroom case study we will be discussing, and there will be a reflective prompt and a must try tip. End of the lesson, we will be doing a recap, and that recap will be helping you to solve your assignments and help you to finally align with. Planning is emotional architecture. Lesson planning is not merely an instructional. Every teacher must remember that students never enter a classroom as blank slates. They arrive carrying emotions, experiences, and unseen stories that shape how they learn. Therefore, before drafting content, a reflective teacher asks deeper questions. What emotional tone will I begin with? Where will students find space to breathe, express, or feel acknowledged? And where might I be talking too much, unintentionally closing the emotional loop of connection? A lesson that ignores these questions may appear complete on paper, but often falters in practice because learning doesn't fail at a point of content. It fails at the point of emotional disconnection. As educators, our first duty is to build emotional flow before cognitive flow, to pace the energy of the room before pacing the syllabus. Great teaching is not just about what is taught, but when and how it aligns with students' attention and emotional thresholds. When lessons are planned with empathy, awareness, and timing, classrooms stop being spaces of instructions and become spaces of resonance where every student feels both seen and ready to learn. Effective lesson planning follows a natural cognitive rhythm captured beautifully in the four-part flow, that is BTPE: begin, teach, practice, and end. This structure mirrors the way the human brain processes, stores, and retrieves information, aligning with Miller's cognitive load theory, which emphasizes the importance of chunking for work memory efficiency. The begin phase serves as an emotional and intellectual hook, connecting new ideas to prior knowledge and setting the tone for curiosity. The teach phase focuses on delivering concepts through scaffolds and analogies, ensuring comprehension before complexity. The practice phase allows learners to internalize understanding through guided trails, peer collaboration, and feedback loops, transforming theory into personal experience. Finally, the end phase provides closure, reflection, and emotional summarization, helping the brain to consolidate learning meaningfully. When teachers follow this flow, they create lessons that are not just sequential but soulful, lessons that respect how mind learns and how the heart remembers. The begin phase is the emotional ignition point of any lesson, the moment when curiosity is awakened and attention is gently invited. Entry is not about content, it's about readiness. Before diving into the textbook, a teacher must prepare the learner's mind and mood to receive new knowledge. The first 5 minutes of a class should feel like an opening door, not a command to open page 45. Start with a story, an image, a playful contradiction that provokes thought. Ask a question that no textbook dares to ask, one that sparks wonder rather than recall. A short visual, a sound clip, a 2-minute challenge can act as a cognitive bridge between the outer world and the learning space. Equally important is emotional safety. Remind students that there are no wrong answers here. This disarms fear and opens participation. Neuroscience confirms that emotionally disarmed learners are cognitively disengaged. The brain resists learning when the heart feels unsafe. So, as you begin, focus on emotional energy before intellectual entry. The tone you set in first minutes determines not how your lesson starts, but how deeply it will be remembered. The teach phase is the intellectual heart of your lesson, the moment when clarity meets curiosity. Here, your goal is not to deliver more information, but to deepen understanding of one key concept. Cognitive research consistently warns that overloading equals disengagement. Students disconnect not because the content is difficult, but because it arrives faster than their minds can process. To keep learning alive, teach through relatable metaphors. For example, describe division as sharing food, not numerator over denominator. Use dual coding by blending verbal explanation with a visual anchor on board. When words and images work together, comprehension strengthens and recall improves. Every few minutes, introduce a quick pause and sketch or turn and tell activity, allowing students to process, visualize, and express what they have just learned. It's not only refreshing attention but also converts passive listening into active meaning making. Remember, most students do not learn longer explanations. They need more entry points into meaning. When teaching becomes a dialogue between a brain's logic and imagination, learning transforms from retention to resonance. The practice phase is where learning transforms from knowledge to competence. It's not about doing exercise 3A, 3B. It's about learning transfer. In this stage, students actively retrieve, apply, and adapt what they have learned rather than simply repeating information. Encourage them to do it alone, do it in pairs, or do it to someone, as each mode of practice strengthens a different layer of understanding. Make space for error led exploration by turning mistakes into learning tools. Let students play the wrong answer detective and analyze what doesn't work and why. To sustain engagement, gamify the process through quick timer challenges, gallery walk, or peer trails that blend movement, curiosity, and cognitive retrieval. Research in cognitive psychology shows that memory becomes strongest not by doing a task once, but by retrieving it under varied conditions. Job of a teacher is to provide these varied conditions. Rest of the things are managed by students. This means that the students learn best when they revisit knowledge in dynamically, emotionally safe, and socially interactive ways. So, practice isn't repetition, it's transformation. It's a bridge where learner shifts from listening to owning the learning. End phase of lesson is not about summarizing. It's about sealing insight. It's the emotional cognitive closure that transforms scattered understanding into narrative memory. Too often, teachers rush through this stage, missing the chance to turn learning into meaning. The final 5 minutes should not feel like a checklist, but a gentle reflection that invites students to internalize what they have experienced. Ask thought provoking questions such as, what would you teach someone younger about this? What stuck with you today? You can even create spark creativity prompts like summarize today's lesson in 6 words or build curiosity by saying, tomorrow we will challenge this idea. You can keep any idea from your lesson. Such questions shift the focus from recall to reflection, prompting learners to reconstruct knowledge in their own words. Neuroscience has suggested that closure moments are vital. They tell the brain, this matters, remember it. By intentionally ending with insight, teachers strengthen narrative memory and emotional retention. So don't just end your class, complete the story of learning, one that continues to echo in your student's mind after the bell rings. Let's talk about the attention map. The attention map reminds us that classrooms are not linear timelines. They are living energy curves, real learning ebbs and flows, following the brain's natural rhythm of focus and fatigue. Research shows that attention typically peaks between 5 to 15 minutes, begins to dip around 15 to 22 minutes, and enters the drift zone after 25 minutes if not interrupted by engagement. The secret of sustaining learning lies in creating intentional attention resets, small planned shifts that reignite focus without derailing instruction. A 2 to 3 minute change, such as sharing a short story, posing a reflective question, or introducing a quick movement or visual, can spark attention back to life. Teachers who design with the brain in mind understand that learning isn't about holding attention, it's about renewing it. So, when you plan your lesson, visualize its energy curve. Start strong, pause purposefully, and reignite often. This rhythm keeps students emotionally awake and cognitively anchored, ensuring that classroom flows with curiosity rather than fatigue. Now let's understand where most lesson plans fail. Most lesson plans collapse not because of poor content, but because of poor timing and emotional flow. Real classrooms don't move in straight lines. They curve, they fluctuate, they breathe. Yet many plans are built like assembly lines, packed with information but empty of rhythm. The first reason plans fail is content overload. The false belief that teaching more means teaching better. When lessons become dense, the learner's mind disengages under cognitive fatigue. The second pitfall is rigid sequencing. Teachers who stick to a fixed order of activities, regardless of class energy, miss the opportunity to adapt, slowly learning momentum. The third and the most subtle is lack of emotional transitions. Abrupt movement from one task to another without emotional pacing causes cognitive breakup, and students feel mentally fragmented and disconnected. The truth is, great content with poor timing still fails. Teachers often plan for a sequence of tasks but forget to plan for the flow of emotions between them. The art of teaching lies in sensing those invisible shifts, pausing when needed, and guiding the emotional arc of learning as carefully as the academic one. Let's discuss a case study of an earlier teacher where she felt, I planned everything, but I consider that my class was not full of life. This case study captures a classic struggle of every new teacher, mistaking more planning for better teaching. Nisha, a first year teacher, entered her class with meticulously prepared slides, 4 engaging activities, and 2 pages of notes. Yet within 10 minutes, the students lost focus, skipped instructions, and the lesson ended with closure that was never ever designed. The problem wasn't her effort, it was her structure. Her plan was heavy on content and light on rhythm. When she was guided and she later replanned using BTPE model, everything changed. The emotional hook that at the start drew students in, the concept of flow felt natural, and short reflection moments kept attention alive. The result: students didn't just understand the lesson, they wanted to experience it again. This transformation proves that teaching effectiveness lies not in how much we teach, but in how meaningfully we pace it. A planned pause, a moment of breath, transition, or curiosity is often more powerful than 10 rushed slides. The real art of lesson planning is not about packing information but crafting an experience where learning feels alive, connected, and sustainable. A must try tip: teach one big idea a day. The most powerful teaching strategy is not covering everything, it's ensuring that something truly stays. The teach one big idea a day principle reminds us that memorable learning happens when each lesson is built around a single unforgettable idea. Before you plan, you ask yourself, if my students forget everything else, what is the one thing that I want them to take with them from the lesson? Once you know that, design your lesson like a TED talk, centered, intentional, and emotionally layered. Use stories, imagery, and relatable analogies to bring that idea alive. And let emotion act as the adhesive that makes it stick. Reinforce the idea at closure and reconnect it with at the start of the next day's class to anchor memory through repetition and relevance. Students rarely remember what filled the board, but they always remember what moved their thinking. Teaching one big idea each day isn't about doing less. It's about teaching with precision, purpose, and emotional power. It transforms lessons from race through topics into moments that shape understanding for life. Reflection is the teacher's invisible classroom, the quiet space where true professional growth happens. At the end of every lesson, ask yourself, if my lesson were a movie, would the audience stay till end? The question reframes teaching as both an art and a narrative, reminding us that lessons must engage, flow, and leave an imprint. Use your journal not as logbook of activities but as mirror of practice. Reflect on which phase you tend to rush because haste often hides lost potential. Identify with the transitions you overlook, since disjointed moments break the emotional rhythm of learning. Finally, ask yourself, what one change could improve my students' experience tomorrow? Small refinements create lasting transformation. Reflection isn't about self critique, it's about self alignment, ensuring that your intention, timing, and teaching energy move in harmony. When teachers reflect like storytellers, each lesson evolves into a more seamless human experience where one learning feels less like instruction and more like inspiration. In this lesson, we have explored not just how to plan, but how to think about planning as an emotional, cognitive, and rhythmic process. You have learned about BTPE and mastered it. Now you understand how to use time blocks that match student energy curves. We have also uncovered common blind spots new teachers face, from content overload to emotional transitions, and learned how one clear, emotionally charged idea per lesson can transform both memory and motivation. Your action step: place one upcoming class using 4-phase format with a built-in attention reset and upload it to Teach Smart community. Reflect it with your peers, share insights, and keep refining your rhythm. Every minute, every pause, and every transition can either drain or deepen learning, and now you have the tools to make every one of them count. Congratulations, you have completed Lesson 3, Basics of Lesson Planning, Easy Format for Beginners under Teach Smart Level 1, the Groundbreaker. You have just taken a major step towards transforming the way lessons are designed and delivered. As you close the session, remember, effective teaching is not about filling time but about designing experience. Every successful lesson begins with emotional connection, flows through structural clarity, and ends with reflection that leaves students thinking long after class ends. The BTP model, begin, teach, practice, and end, is your compass for that flow. The goal of Teach Smart is not just to make your lesson ready, but life ready for dynamic, ever changing classroom. Keep reflecting, keep refining, and keep reminding yourself a well placed plan shapes not only students learn, but also how deeply they feel the joy of learning. And yes, as an early year teacher, you have started making your impression that will last longer in the student's mind, and also it will help you be a teacher, scientist, and a researcher, rather a stagnant teacher. Thank you.